Awesome, everybody. This is the Building Coalitions panel, and I'm really excited about this one. The National Landing Bid, in partnership with local organizations representing advocacy and business interests, created the People Before Cars Coalition in 2021. The coalition amplifies next generational transportation infrastructure necessary to create a safer, people-centric network and national landing. This panel explores how bids and place management organizations can collaborate with community stakeholders to garner support for big ideas that diverge from anticipated vehicle-centered practices. Through advocacy campaigns, storytelling, and collaborations, bids can help harness the power of shared interests to build coalitions and champion major capital projects. This session will explore the People Before Cars model and a lesson learned to deliver a shared vision of people's mobility within national landing. I'm really excited about this, y'all. We have some really awesome people on this panel. People that I've had the opportunity to work closely with over the last year, and it's been a great honor. Really looking forward to working with them in the future. We're going to kick it off with a presentation about what People Before Cars is and how we got started, and to lay the groundwork. So let's kick that presentation off.
Great, thank you, Jeremiah. While we get the deck up, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name is Malika Scriven. I'm the Vice President of Planning and Development here at National Landing Bid. Really thrilled that I'm joined with some of our partners in the coalition, Sonia Brehe and Jillian Burgess, as well as Jeremiah, who's also part of the coalition. And I'll tell you a little bit about our experiences under the People Before Cars Coalition. So why don't we go ahead and jump to the first slide, which really sets the tone for, where we are. So just to tell you a little bit about the bid, first and foremost, we're a nonprofit place management organization, and we're responsible stewards that help manage and shape growth while fostering a diverse and inclusive, equitable community for all who live and visit National Landing. As you can see here, our urban district extends into the Potomac Yard, Alexandria area, and also includes Virginia Tech's Innovation Campus, and soon to be Potomac Yard. That's where the National Landing umbrella term and district comes from. The actual bid boundaries are within the Arlington portion of National Landing and include our three urban neighborhoods, Pentagon City, Crystal City, and Potomac Yard. Next slide, please. This slide really speaks to the fact that National Landing is on a resilient path towards a strong recovery post the pandemic. And this is mainly due in part because of our big anchors, Amazon's 5.3 million square feet of headquarters to the north, Virginia Tech's 1 million square feet of innovation campus to the south, and Boeing's recent announcement to stake its global headquarters right here in National Landing. Our urban district is quickly evolving into the region's most premier innovation district and smart city. Next slide. Another factor in our strong recovery is the significant public and private investment in mobility infrastructure that's currently underway. This slide shows 7 of our biggest transportation projects that are currently in the pipeline and expected to deliver in phases over the next decade. I wanted to call out our 2 big move transportation projects, which is CC to DCA and Route 1, shown in number 3 and number 5, that can really set us apart from other urban downtowns by delivering next generational connectivity that we really haven't seen elsewhere in the region. And for context, I want you to think about, flying into Washington National and then walking over to Crystal City in a safe and easy way. Next generation mobility right here in National Landing. You can get more information on some of these other projects through a recorded Mobility Next presentation that was heard previously here at the summit. And so I encourage you to listen to that presentation from my colleague, Rob Mandel, our Deputy Executive Director. Next slide, please. And that's why the National Landing Bid has led the formation of the People Before Cars Coalition. The coalition essentially unites local stakeholders around shared people-centric mobility and Vision Zero principles to create a safe and more accessible transportation network across National Landing. And we have representation from some of our region's most premier advocates in the space. We have Arlington Families for Safe Streets, which is led by Jillian Burgess. It's a community voice for infrastructure and policy changes towards a more safe and equitable mobility. SUSMO, or Sustainable Mobility, here in Arlington County under Chris Slatt, which advocates for smart transportation options for all Arlingtonians. The Coalition for Smarter Growth, led by Stuart Schwartz, but represented today by Sonia Brehe, which advocates for walkable, bikeable, inclusive, transit-oriented development. And WABA, represented today by Jeremiah on our coalition, which also celebrates bikeable, walkable, transit accessible urban neighborhoods. And really excited that we have one of our business members, JVG Smith, Jay Carvallis, which is National Landing's largest property owner. Next slide, please. And so together, our partners are united around shared priorities to create a safer and more accessible transportation network across National Landing. And we essentially work collectively to promote these priorities through public outreach and through strategic partnerships. Next slide. But why now? I think what you've heard earlier is that we know the formation of the coalition comes at a critical juncture in National Landing, since we're on a fast trajectory to becoming one of the most premier innovation districts. And we know that the future of our downtown depends on decisions that we actually make today. And so it's critical that we stand as one voice to amplify best practices and center on common principles and priorities like Vision Zero and safer streets, which are underscored in the coalition's shared priorities. Next slide. Our coalition priorities on Vision Zero principles and people-centered mobility not only helps us achieve a safer and more accessible transportation network, but it also helps us achieve so many other goals. For example, National Landing has over 15.1 million square feet of commercial space here in National Landing. It contains a little over 5,000 hotel rooms and is a home to a little bit more than 13,000 rental apartments. We know that over the next 10 years, we will see about 8.5 million square feet of new commercial development and over 8,000 new residential units over the next 10 years. We will be surpassing Capitol Riverfront as the fastest growing urban downtown in the region. And so looking forward, we have to ensure a network that embodies increased mobility, walking, biking, scooting. We know that these are critical aspects that will play an important role in moving people in National Landing. Next slide. So what types of projects rise to the coalition's priorities? I mentioned a little bit earlier, our big move projects obviously are Route 1 and CC to DCA. You've heard a lot about those over time, I'm sure. We talk about those in the panel. We also focus on enhancing the National Landing Transitway, expanding transit operations while also increasing the headway frequencies. The coalition is also super focused on creating a fully connected bike network that is safe and accessible for all visitors, as well as increasing access to rail and MARC train. Next slide. And one of the ways that the coalition champions these shared priorities through advocacy. For example, one of our first People Before Cars campaign centered on urbanizing Route 1 into people-centered boulevard during VDOT's first phase of the project. And the coalition led a series of social media campaigns to bring awareness to the project. We also encouraged the community to support the project by sending tailored advocacy letters to VDOT and to the county. And the letters were specific, helped to specify what areas of importance and priorities we wanted to see in any of the Route 1 recommendations. Most of these recommendations targeted how to safely accommodate pedestrians, bikes, and other multimodal users in this, and really fostering a broader National Landing where businesses will want to invest and employees will want to work. Next slide. We also led a grassroots campaign to bring awareness to the importance of urbanizing Route 1 through data and stats. We used sidewalk decals to bring awareness to Route 1's existing conditions on safety and speed and vehicle trips along the corridor. We also led several discussions around the BID's Reimagine Route 1 report, and we can talk about that a little bit later as well. Next slide. And ultimately, the People Before Cars campaign website was a great resource to offer comprehensive awareness to the problem, solution, and opportunity for creating this urbanized Route 1. And we had a website where all of the information was housed. Next slide. The coalition also collaborates together to offer targeted support letters on a variety of Arlington County national landing specific projects that we know will help deliver safe and more accessible national landing network. Next slide. This is just an example of how we advocate and support community collaboration through our website and through much of the People Before Cars messaging. And so we encourage many of our community partners to coordinate with us and to talk with us so that we can see, while we don't always see eye to eye on specific projects, we can always identify shared priorities in these big move projects that we know we need to see come to fruition. Next slide, last slide. Yeah, this is just the People Before Cars Coalition logo and social assets that have been, many of our partners have used through our advocacy efforts. And so just happy to be sharing this information with you all here. And that brings my presentation to a conclusion. And I'm happy to introduce our partners. And maybe Jeremiah, I'll hand the mic over back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Let's get it kicked off. I would love to hear from some of the partners about why they joined this coalition. Why did you decide to make the leap and join this coalition? Let's start with you, Jillian.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here and so excited to be talking about the People Before Cars Coalition, because I think this is somewhat unique in the Washington region. And I think we've been really successful in this partnership. So the story here really starts with Route 1. Route 1 has been a big marquee project that we've been talking about in Arlington ever since HQ2 was announced. For those who don't know, Route 1 is currently an elevated highway in the north section of Crystal City, of National Landing, dividing Crystal City from Pentagon City. And it really is a dividing wall. And with the traffic that it brings into this area, it makes it a really unpleasant place to walk and to bike. And it detracts from sort of the neighborhood atmosphere. So from an advocacy side, we have long to look for ways to improve the transportation network in this area. HQ2, the announcement of HQ2 was a generational change in the transportation network in this area. And I know people throw that around, but I can't express enough how unique this opportunity was, because with that announcement, it became clear that we were going to really, truly reimagine, fundamentally reimagine this area of the county. And there were a couple other national trends coming in line at the same time, one of which is bringing elevated highways down to grade, which can be a great thing for communities. You're taking something that is literally a wall between two neighborhoods and bringing it down to grade. But Arlington already has a wall between two neighborhoods that is an at-grade highway, Route 50. Route 50 is literally the separating point between North Arlington and South Arlington. And what we in the advocacy community knew was we didn't want another Route 50. We wanted to bring Route 1 down, but we wanted to do it in a way that connected the neighborhoods. We also knew from experience that it wasn't only about Route 1, it was about the entire transportation network for the entire neighborhood. And as we in the advocacy community were talking about this, we started seeing some of the work the bid was doing, because in the business community, they also understood that they needed to have a pleasant place to do business so they could sell that, right? And what we realized is that our priorities and their priorities overlapped in huge ways. And we were sitting, on the advocacy side, we were talking amongst ourselves and we were saying, hey, look, they have great signs. They have great messaging. They have professionals who know how to do a lot of this stuff, and they are getting the statistics. They are getting the research. They're doing a great job, but they don't always know what's happening on the ground. They don't always have the connections to the neighbors and to everybody who's pushing from the public side. We are volunteers in largely volunteer-led and run organizations that are run off of donations. So we didn't have the same amount of resources. So we thought this is a great opportunity to join forces and make sure that we're rowing in the right direction and that we're sharing the resources we have. We had the experience and the knowledge of being grassroots organizations, and they had the experience and the knowledge and the resources of being a professional organization. And really, when we came together, the synergies were immediate. They also understood that this was a neighborhood-wide issue, that you have to have a transportation system that works. And it's not just about Route 1, but they also understood Route 1 has to be done correctly, because if you screw up Route 1, it's going to be almost impossible to fix it. So that's, we came together. The bid has been an excellent partner, and JBG Smith have been excellent partners in messaging. We found common ground, which has really allowed us to hone our message. And we've been able to piggyback off of each other's strengths and come together in a way that's led to a lot of successes. And what I'm really excited about is that if you look right now, obviously Route 1 is still what it is, and we're still in the planning phase. But if you look over time at the drafts of the plan that have come out, you can see the effect that we've been having. And we've been reaching out to the county to make sure the county is playing an appropriate role and to support the county, because this is a VDOT run project. And those of us in Virginia know that there's a complicated dance between VDOT, our state level transportation organization, and our local level politics. So being able to be there behind the county, support the county, have the county take a more public role and an appropriate role for them to be pushing in the right direction has been really important. And by working both the advocacy side and the business side and coming together and then going to the political side together, we've had a lot more success. You can see that in the drafts of the Route 1 project. You can see that in the stance, the increasingly public stance that Arlington has taken on Route 1. You can also see that in, I think, the biggest win, the biggest clear win so far is the Crystal City Bike Network. That is something that was started before the coalition came together. There are a lot of separate development projects happening in the National Landing area. And a lot of times in Arlington, when a development project happens, they also, in association with the project, change the streetscape. And we were disappointed by some of the results of the streetscapes that were coming out of individual projects. But the county was saying, well, we can't improve the streetscape just for one block or just for half a block. And we said, well, really what you need here is a plan that impacts the entire neighborhood that then you can implement in the individual projects. That's something that the county board asked staff for at the end of 2019. Obviously, the pandemic sort of intervened and delayed our timing in there, but staff started working on it and came out with some drafts of plans that were okay. They somewhat improved the situation, but they weren't great. And it's one of the topics that the coalition came together on. And I should say it is the bike network, but one of the biggest issues in Crystal City is it's so dense that a lot of people do want to use bikes and want to use scooters to get around, but are unsafe on the streets today. So they end up on the sidewalk. And so the solution there for improving the sidewalks is actually to create a safe place to be on a bike or on a scooter. So the Crystal City Bike Network is a project that really will improve the transportation system, not just for people biking, but especially for people walking, because it'll get, you know, the wheels off the sidewalk, so to speak. And our work through the coalition really was able to improve the final product. And we're going to see those projects start to be installed very soon. We're going to start to see hardened barriers, which is something we see in the district and we haven't seen a lot of in Arlington yet. Very excited about, very optimistic about this fall as we start to see some of these projects come to life. And I'm so appreciative for the partnership of the coalition and all these great people that we've gotten to work with.
Awesome. So that was really good analysis. Really appreciate that. So I'm kicking it over to you, Sonia. You're wearing two hats. You have like two hats here. So what inspired your organization or push your organization to jump into the coalition?
Sure. Yeah. I think Jillian hit a lot of the key points. So I'm the Northern Virginia Advocacy Manager for the Coalition for Smarter Growth, one hat, my day job. I'm also on the board of the Northern Virginia Families for Safe Streets and the Fairfax chapter. I think as far as CSG in joining this coalition, and I think Malika sort of described it, at the core of what CSG does is promote walkable, bike-friendly, transit-oriented communities as the most equitable and sustainable way for our region to grow, right? And so our priorities clearly align with the People Before Cars Coalition and the vision that they have for national landing. So, and we believe in the power of acting together with partners to have really a stronger impact towards the change we want to see. The more we can bring people together under this big tent, I think, Jillian, I don't know if you use the analogy of rowing in the same direction together, right? We work together, we work out differences, because I think we all seek, that everybody's seeking the same thing, and maybe there's some differences here and there, but like it provides a forum for us to talk out what our thoughts are, what our concerns are, and to develop the messaging and really sort of make that impact together. And we've heard a lot today about the need to shift away from car-centric views and planning, and instead think about people and how they get around these transportation networks. It's a more forward way of thinking, and the People Before Cars Coalition, that is at the heart of what they're trying to do in national landing. We need to create safe and accessible, complete streets for everyone, whether we walk, bike, take transit, or even for the folks who have to drive. And so, we're very happy to join this coalition, this effort to really transform national landing into a community for the future.
Awesome. Malika, did you want to add any additional words?
Well, as you can see, we have really great partners, and I think collectively, our voice, our shared voice on these very critical projects really sets the stage for our VDOT and Arlington County partners to listen and hone in a little bit closer than perhaps if we would come to the stage with our individual voices. And so certainly it has our collective shared priorities, and this approach in the coalition has set the stage for really fostering a sense of camaraderie and respect with our county partners and with our community members, quite frankly. We're all individual organizations. We don't always see eye to eye. But in these conversations, it has been imperative that we hone in on the projects and the priorities that we know are going to create a safe, pedestrian-centric downtown for us all. And we've been able to really leverage that unified voice to advocate for these projects in a real meaningful way. So it's really been a testament, the coalition's work on, how these shared priorities can really, we can get action on these shared priorities.
I think I'm up next to Bat, representing WABA. I am gonna keep mine simple, more protected bike lane, just the opportunity to bring these groups together. I think we're just powerful together, as opposed to separate. And when we're united and we have a focus, I think we could do great things, and I think we are doing great things. And from WABA's end, those great things include more protected bike lanes coming to Northern Virginia. And so that is always a plus. And so I'm really excited about some of the plans, the Crystal City Bike Network, plus more, they're on the way. So hashtag more protected bike lanes. The next question I have for the team is, why the coalition's mission is centered on Vision Zero and Safe Streets principles. So, the theme of this year's summit is a safe systems approach. And so why do you believe the coalition's mission in this work is centered on Vision Zero and the safe systems approach? And we'll start with you, Sonia.
Great, thanks. I think, we were talking a little bit earlier during the summit today about how we design our streets. And we were talking about all these different opportunities to design them specifically in ways that systematically slows traffic down, gives space for pedestrians and cyclists, and creates that you're basically designing into the system safe ways to move around. It's both not only just safe, it's comfortable, it's easy, and it encourages folks to use those modes. So, I see the transformation of National Landing and everything that is happening, that it really presents some amazing opportunities to redesign the streets there. Route 1, classic example, right? To make them safer for all users. And clearly we need to get the designs right. I think Jillian hit on it with the Route 1 and bringing it down to grade. We struggle with our arterials if we over design them and they're too wide and we try to make too many people happy. We're going to move cars and we're trying to accommodate pedestrians and people. There still is conflict. So, I think a great way that this coalition can act together is to continue to push to make sure that we do get the design right, that we're building something for the future that is going to provide safe and connected transportation options for people who are on foot, on bike, scooting, and any mode that they might want to take. We want folks to get to where they need to go safely. And we can design it that way. And with this transformation, it really presents that opportunity to sort of go back to the drawing board and create what we now know is the right way to design these roads. So I think I'll leave it at that because I think there's some other real great experts that can speak to this on our panel, but thanks.
Awesome, thank you. Jillian, why is this coalition, the work we're doing, leading us down a pathway to hopefully Vision Zero one day?
So I think really, in my mind, it comes down to safe streets are more pleasant streets. Safe streets are more fun. I'm a mom, so I come at this from the perspective of someone who's been traveling a lot this summer and walking around streets with my 3 kids. And it, and I think this is true whether you have kids or not, but when you see your kids in a situation that's precarious, that's less safe, it's very front of mind. This isn't fun. This is, you are stressed about how you're getting around, whether you're in a car, whether you're on transit, walking or biking. If it doesn't feel safe, it's stressful, it's hard. It's just hard on you. Versus when it is safe, you can relax, you can skip, you can dance, you can let the kids be kids and joke around. and you feel more relaxed, you feel like you're having fun, you are more comfortable. That is, from the advocacy side, very important for the people that live there, from, you know, the grassroots people that have gotten involved because they want the places they live and they want the places they work and they go to school and they play to be pleasant places. That's why a lot of us are here investing our time, volunteering our time in this direction. And not to speak for our friends over in the business community, but I think they get it too, that if it's a more pleasant place to be, it's better for business. And in my mind, the coalition is really bringing those two sides together, saying that you want safety. Of course, you want safety for safety's sake, but you want safety because people like it. You want safety because that's where people want to live. You want safety because that's where people spend their money. And so I think Vision Zero is a really important part of it, because a Vision Zero community is the kind of community you want to spend a lot of time and a lot of money in.
Awesome. Malika, why does the bid, what interest does the bid have in this? As far as like leading us to Vision Zero?
That's a great question, Jeremiah. You know, as a planner, obviously I know what the answer is, but in the instance of representing business owners, sometimes their interests are more focused on what the bottom line is, right? I think Jillian pointed to that a little bit earlier. So what's the bottom line of having safer streets here in National Landing? What's the bottom line in advocating and spending the time and resources to advocate for these types of projects? And ultimately, it's to create a vibrant urban downtown that we all can thrive in. And that means not only having accessibility through, you know, bikes, but also having multimodal accessibility that's safe, that offers a variety of options for us all to simply get around. And the beauty of National Landing is that that is actually coming to fruition soon with these big transportation investments to the tune of $4 billion. And so that dedicated funding to deliver these big move projects, I think, is fundamental. And so it is in our best interest to advocate for these projects if, in fact, we are championing a vibrant urban downtown that is repositioned and will be repositioned as a new emerging innovation district. So we need Vision Zero, we need safer streets, we need to make National Landing a model for this type of work.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my next question is, as you know, it's Regional Vision Zero Summit, you know, so we have some folks here from Maryland and from Washington, D.C. who are listening in on this panel. And so I would love to hear from the panel about why this work is important regionally. You know, why does it set the context for what we're trying to do throughout the region? And so, Jillian, I would love to hear the regional context to why this.
That's great. So I think that I want you all to copy this idea. I think that I think that it's been, from my perspective, wildly successful. Partnering up with the business community has been great. I've learned a lot from them. I think that we've been successful in our efforts. We've amplified our voice. And I think that, especially in this day and age where we're all looking past pandemic, we're looking at a world where a lot of people telework and they have choices in where they live that are less defined by getting to the office every day or 5 days a week. The concept of an enjoyable place, a place that you choose to live, is really defined a lot by transportation. And and I think the business community is getting that. I think that's a message that they're hearing. And so I think we have some partners out there that, and some partnerships that can make it better everywhere. And we can't do it alone in Arlington. I don't know the stat off the top of our head, but most of our traffic, most of the people traveling around Arlington do not spend their entire days, their entire weeks in Arlington. We need a regional approach to transportation because the system has to work together. It's all well and good if you can get around Arlington without a car, but if you have to have a car living in Fairfax County, that means all those people in Fairfax County will already be in their cars and will bring cars to Arlington if they come to Arlington, or will avoid it. And it means for me, the reality of my life and of having kids is that I'm going where their activities are, which a lot of times are in Fairfax County. And when I got to take them there, if the only way to get around is a car, then we're in the car, which we don't want to be. So we need the regional approach. And I think this is one tool that I hope everybody can put in their toolbox, and to get a more successful region with a transportation system that can be safer and be more sustainable.
Awesome. Sonia, so the Coalition for Smarter Growth works throughout the region. Why is the work that the coalition is doing important for what's going on, what we're trying to do throughout the region?
Sure. We were talking about how we do work regionally, promoting sort of walkable transit-oriented communities. It's a regional solution. If across the region we're doing this, it helps to build the whole region in a more sustainable way. But let's just say that the transportation investments that are happening in National Landing are connected to a regional network. So, I think, it's an opportunity for us in Fairfax. That's where I live. I don't live in Arlington, but when I want to go into Fairfax, how connected is it for me to get there via transit? There's a lot of investments in other parts of the regions that will equally tie into this network. But, I think with the connections to rail, the enhancements to the transit in National Landing, the bike ped connections, and how the regional network, if we think about like the Capital Trails Coalition, and they think regionally, like what's going on locally is connected regionally, and that's going to give people more transportation options, more sustainable transportation options regionally. And I think the other thing is that we have to create opportunities for people to live close to jobs in walkable communities that are bike friendly with access to good transit. And that is the core of what's happening in National Landing, right? And so then it's that transportation network that connects it regionally. And then, if you have more homes in National Landing, it reduces the need for people to have to work further out to find that affordable housing way out, right? If there's more housing options closer in, if for a mix of incomes in National Landing, you can reduce the amount of people who have to drive those long commutes out from Prince William or Fairfax into National Landing, because folks can live there. Now, of course, not everybody's going to be able to live there, but they might have more enhanced transit options coming into National Landing just the same. With the Silver Line and other transit enhancements, we're going to see more opportunity in bus rapid transit networks that are being expanded regionally. So there's going to be more opportunity there as well. And not to mention, it's just outside of even the commute. I know we were talking about how telework is really sort of shifting that somewhat. But a lot of times, you're seeing people using transit in those off hours. And so whether folks are visiting National Landing or people who live in National Landing are going to go elsewhere, the more options, transportation options we have, the better it is for our region to grow in a more sustainable and equitable way. And the other thing that I wanted to sort of speak to with regards to sort of the regional aspect of it, what's happening, with Route 1 and that dropping it down to an at-grade urban boulevard, lots of folks are watching how this gets done. This is a very innovative and first of its kind in Virginia to see VDOT sort of grappling with this, and so what we're working on arterials that are equally on Route 1 in Alexandria, but Fairfax County, and they're widening it to like 10, 12 lanes across. It's crazy, right? And so I'm excited to see and learn from what is happening in National Landing to see how we can apply it. And I know, and I've spoken to other like elected officials in Fairfax County and places, we're all watching to see how this plays out, because I think it's really going to be a great model of how we can do that regionally in other places, because I think it's just going to be great. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Awesome, thank you. Malika, I would love to hear from you. What's the regional context for this? How is this going to affect and impact the region?
I think from a business standpoint, having the work of the coalition champion these big projects not only offers greater access to National Landing, but also offers greater connectivity to the jobs that are going to be located here. We know that Amazon is committed to offering at least 25,000 new jobs. And what better way than to have those jobs get access is to the broader regional community. And if we have a better, safer, more accessible transportation network, then that also means having a greater access to the jobs that are going to be located here. Yes, we know that the pandemic has changed the way that we work, but also, fostering a more urban downtown is also appealing, and we need to have regional access to all of the amenities that we have here. And so I really support the work that the coalition does to champion these big projects in a way that expands job opportunities throughout the region, while also showcasing all the great things that are here at National Land as a vibrant urban downtown.
Jeremiah, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. See, and we're like 2 years into this, 3 years into this. I'm still on mute. I was gonna ask. I was gonna stick with you, Malika. I would love to hear from your perspective the challenges. I know, like we painted sunshine and rainbows, but we know sometimes putting this stuff together is never easy. So I would love to hear throughout this process from your point of view. What were some of the challenges for folks who are listening, and maybe how do you think we overcame some of those challenges?
I think that's a great question too, because we obviously, I think it's a unique situation to have a collaborative approach representing all different perspectives on a series of projects, right? And so I think that in itself is unique. But what's not unique is that we don't always see eye to eye. We all have our individual understanding of what success is. And the beauty of that is that you can still advocate for what your position is on these projects under your umbrella of your organization. I think where we have collectively agreed on the implementation of these projects is what rises to the top, right? Everything else kind of maybe not be as focused. For example, for Route 1, we know that having an at-grade urban boulevard is extremely important to us from a National Landing perspective, but maybe not for a person that considers an at-grade connection to be safe. There are many community members that we know we're really strongly advocating against an at-grade connection for Route 1. And we've had several conversations with our community partners on the pros and cons of activating and creating an urban boulevard for Route 1. And again, the beauty of the conversation lies in where those shared priorities rise to the top. And that's where I think we have all been respectful in celebrating those shared priorities, specifically for Route One, sharing those specific priorities, but also being able to advocate on your own behalf and your organization's own behalf on what you think really should be the priority goal of urbanizing Route One. So I'll let our partners chime in on that on that piece too. Maybe you might have a different perspective.
Sonia, I would love to hear from you when you have a coalition of businesses and advocates together. You know, what are some of the challenges, and what do you think we could do to overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, well, I think to Malika's point that, we all do sort of come from different positions and have different thoughts. But I think the benefit of working in coalition and having partners is one, building the relationship with these folks so you can have honest conversations to talk about what you're concerned about, what you support, what you don't support, and you flesh that out together. Right. And and I see it like it's always better to do it, amongst your partners than to be at a public meeting yelling at each other. Right. Like, let's come around a table and have or a Zoom and have a conversation and see what we can come to agreement on and also what we can't. And when you identify and you delineate that, the coalition can focus on the things where we have shared priorities and we can agree. And maybe that might feel more watered down to some, but it's moving the ball forward. And if we're going to work, if we're going to get things moving in a positive direction, we're going to have to figure out how to bring us all together because we are a community and we need to figure out together how to make that work. And, my experience has been is you get into some of these community meetings where people are just sort of talking out and they get angry and there isn't a lot of listening. But I think when we have the opportunity to face people, to meet them, and just sort of take a step back and listen more, it results in a better product. We're able to figure those things out. And either we do come together or we have to respectfully disagree and sort of step aside and do something different. And it might be too that if we have the forum where we're talking about what our concerns are, is there something we can actually do to address those concerns? If the concerns for an at-grade Route 1, I get it. Like, I'm afraid to cross Arlington Boulevard, and I've always wished I had an easier way, a grade separated way to do that. That's Arlington Boulevard is closer to my neighborhood, and it's one my kids have to navigate to get to school. And so that's my struggle that I relate to, but I understand that. But I think part of looking to the future and being innovative, like, we can get this right. We know that there are design elements. We can have protected intersections. We can have separated, protected bike lanes that separate pedestrians on sidewalks. We can figure it out and come together, but we have to talk to have that to come together. So it's also an opportunity to have those conversations, see if there are solutions that would work. And then even better, if we can all get behind and advocate to VDOT or others that, hey, we want a protected intersection. We want to see one of those right here. Can we have that? So it helps to push the envelope a little bit better too. So I think that's a lot of, yes, there's clearly challenges, but I think these are the types of forums that really help us to come together better and to find solutions that are workable for all of us in the community.
I want to quickly say, if folks have a question for our panelists, please put it in the chat right now. If you have a question, please, and we will try to get to it. But Jillian, and the work that you do, there's going to be some friction. Be some friction, and not everything is perfect. And so, what's some of the challenges you think that the coalition is facing? And for people listening, how do you overcome those challenges?
So I think especially at the genesis of the coalition, I think one of the challenges we faced on the advocacy side was from others in the advocacy community. I think there was some skepticism and some distrust of the business community. And there was sort of this, wait, are you guys selling out? Are you guys are you guys helping the business community and losing sight of the goals of that advocacy community? And I think, that took a lot of patience. As Sonia said, listening to all the different sides, listening to people's concerns. And I think I think we've tried to address it through transparency. I posted the People Before Cars Coalition's website in the chat, which hopefully people can see. And you can see there that we've posted our agreement, our guiding principles, our priorities. We've posted the various letters that we've sent, and lots of documentation about what we're doing there. And through that transparency, I think that we've been able to win back some trust. And also, as Sonia mentioned and Malika mentioned, we've worked with people, and over time, just continuing to show up, continuing the conversation, to listen respectfully. I think we've found common ground, even with some of the people who initially were very distrustful of the coalition. But that, in my mind, was the biggest challenge.
Absolutely. Well, no one mentioned working with government agencies as a challenge. That was a I think, for our challenges, sometimes working with government agencies, it can be a little bit of sometimes a little bit difficult, and different roadblocks that they have to go through internally to get things done. So that's oftentimes a challenge when you have a coalition. You have these big goals. You agree to something, but then the government says, "Well, we don't agree with it." So what do you do? And so that's oftentimes a challenge. But I will also say, especially in Northern Virginia, that we have a lot of good government partners as well at the table who are supporting the work that we do and helping move some of this stuff forward. Especially with the Crystal City Bike Network as well. Jillian, I would love to hear your perspective on that. Your relationships or working with government agencies out in Orleans.
So yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. It can be challenging to work with the government agencies. It helps to recognize where they're coming from and what their concerns are, and try to get to the bottom of what they're really, what the concern is, or what's behind what's going on. Because I think most of the people are honest brokers, and that they would like a system where no one dies. Vision Zero is of course what they're doing. And if you were to ask any of them, in transportation planning, how many deaths are we planning on really? I think they would say none, of course, but they're balancing other competing priorities. And the question is, what are those competing priorities, and how do we address them? How can we talk about it? I know I'm painting this very rosy picture of the coalition, but I do think that it's been very helpful, because a lot of what, when you start talking to staff, or when you start talking to government actors, they will say, that's all fine for the people who live in a place, but the businesses want parking. The businesses want XYZ. And you can show them studies, but if the business interests are there lobbying for the parking, if the business owners are there lobbying against you, it's really hard to point to studies that most often are used, were done somewhere else. And so if you can talk to the businesses ahead of time, and you can go to the government already with the business on your side, it's just taking away one of the competing priorities they may be thinking about. And I think that's one of the the big values in doing this sort of coalition work. And then there's, of course, other coalitions to be built to talk about these other priorities. You know, there's often, well, in a lot of work I do, it's about the schools and the transportation networks related to schools. And a lot of that is parents just need to get around. They need to get their kids where the kids need to be. And, you know, if you hear them out and you hear that the issue is, for example, school buses aren't on time, and that's why they're driving to school. Well, there you go. We can address making the school bus system better and improving transportation and transportation safety for everyone in, you know, sort of one fell swoop. So I think there's a lot of coalitions to be built that help in working with our government partners.
Can I add something in there too? In thinking about VDOT, I think I just sort of wanted to add, I think a lot of moving sort of the ball forward with regards to improving safety on our streets or doing more innovative designs, like our vision for the Route 1 through the transit urban boulevard in Route 1 in National Landing. It helps when we have a coalition, and I think we together can continue to talk with VDOT and their representatives to educate them, to sort of push them to try new things. And I think when they start to see, and the elected officials see also, that there's this sort of groundswell behind it and people want to see the road designs change, it pushes them to make that change. And I think that's been a big struggle, sort of working with VDOT more holistically, because it's a little different if it's in Arlington versus Fairfax or other parts of the state. They seem to treat things differently. And why I said, a lot of us are watching to see what can be done, what VDOT is willing to do here, because I feel as though there is a lot of incentive. There's a lot of momentum because Amazon, because of all the transportation investments that are coming in here, and the coalition's continued work in trying to bring people together to sort of get that design right is going to help move the ball forward with our Department of Transportation engineers in seeing what can be done. And I hope that that translates overall into more progressive designs elsewhere. So certainly it's a challenge, but I think when we work together and we use it as an education opportunity, we use it as an opportunity to mobilize supporters to sort of push the envelope, that we can overcome some of that resistance and start to see the changes that we really are needing so badly within our departments of transportation, especially at the state level.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Sonia. I think innovation and overall state DOT planning at some point in time needs to be seen, especially as we're seeing examples of the types of projects that we know we need in our urban downtown areas being delivered all across the country. And yet still the conversation to move our transportation engineers at the state level further always tends to be a rocky road. And so certainly I think there needs to be a larger momentum around innovative practices and showcasing what successful, how these projects can really deliver successful results for pedestrian-centered mobility. So I agree with you.
Awesome. Well, I got you there for 2 seconds, then we're gonna go into close. I would love to hear from your perspective for folks out there and throughout the region working with businesses. What do you think some of the things, I guess if we have any business folks in the community, in the audience today, like what are some of the things that they could ease their nerves when it comes to working with advocates and joining these coalitions about why this is important? So like if folks have some hesitancy, I know like Jillian was talking about like, it's a little nerve wracking sometimes to work with businesses, but from the business end, what are some, it could be nerve-wracking too to sometimes work with advocates. So what are some of the things you think businesses need to hear, I guess, to ease that tension?
I guess that's for me, right? I think, is that it's not really that different. I think that we all really do want safer, better connected, and offering multiple ways to navigate our areas outside of just a car. And so it's really important to understand that there are a lot of shared priorities. I think we just have to come to the table and hear what those conversations are, and have really leaders like our executive director Tracy Gabriel, and Robin Mandel, our deputy executive director, who have been championing these types of projects for decades. And so it's really important to get those like-minded leaders at the table to kind of get our business folks in, as well as get our advocacy folks in at the same table to have the conversation.
Awesome. We got to wrap it up. Let me give y'all 30 seconds to have a closing thing that you want to leave the audience with. So Jillian, starting with you, 30 seconds. What do you want to leave the audience with?
I mainly want to leave the audience with copy this idea. I think this has been a great partnership. It's really been enjoyable. And I think that while you may not everywhere in the region has such great partners in the business community right now who are so educated on this stuff. A lot of it is that relationship building, and showing up, being respectful, listening to what concerns are, and not coming in with too hardened of an idea of what a solution is, but with a willingness to work, not to sell out your principles, but just to work with people to see if there's a way to come together and find common ground, because we do a lot more together than we do on our own.
Sonia, what do you want to leave the audience with today?
Sure. I'm super glad to be a part of this coalition. It's a great coalition doing good work. I've always appreciated sort of, and I've said it, creating that vision, putting that vision out there, and then standing behind it. And I think, to Jillian's point, the more we can bring people together and build relationships and build that trust to talk about and find out what our shared priorities might be in creating these communities that we want to be vibrant and thriving, both for jobs and housing and transportation, all these things, they're all interrelated. And so we have to find out how we can work together. And the more we can do that, the better off we can be. And agreed, like creating these types of coalitions elsewhere around projects would be fantastic. So I appreciate the opportunity to sort of speak on this today. And hope folks got something out of it that will be helpful for them in their work.
Awesome. Malika, you take us home.
All right. I just want to leave us with the fact that shared voices are certainly more impactful than one. We've been really fortunate to have a great group of coalition stakeholders join us to advocate for safer mobility, people-centric mobility here at National Landing. And I know that I'm certainly pleased about our trajectory and our journey towards a safer, more accessible National Landing. So I just wanted to say shared voices are certainly more impactful than one, and to thank our partners. And yes, replicate this model. We're happy to talk with you all to give you some factors on how to do so.
Awesome. That's a good note to leave on. Really appreciate all of you. And thank everyone for listening to this panel. We got more in store for the rest of the Vision Zero Summit. Thank everybody for listening. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.